So this is another great report from Alex Koch, who is a TYT network investigative reporter. He has been looking into the DCCC. DCCC, of course, has been doing a lot of shady things, supporting establishment Democratic candidates, even attacking other Democratic candidates who are more progressive. So there's been a lot of stories out about that. Now, the newest one is how the DCCC is dealing with healthcare. Now, there was another story, of course, where he talked about some of the recent internal polling done by the DCCC to find out the best way for its candidates to address the topic of healthcare. Now, Koch explains that the DCCC hired 2 research firms to conduct internal polling focused on 52 battleground districts expected to be close races in 2018. Now, he explains that they wanted to find a way to talk about healthcare. Well, look, I think that the best way is to talk about Medicare for all. However, what they found disagreed with that. Now, he writes, Stan Greenberg, a pollster and founding partner with Greenberg, Quinlan, Rosner, presented their findings at the office of the DCCC, the DNC, and suggested the Democratic candidate should focus on the flaws in Republican plans and offer only proactive solutions if asked, as The Intercept recently reported. Now, single-payer Medicare for all never made it into that conversation. Again, they're telling candidates, don't talk about your health care plan. No, only talk about how bad the Republican health care plan is. Don't talk about our own. Well, why is that? It's because they don't have a health care plan. Again, these corporate Democrats, they don't want to touch single payer. What they want to do is, let's just preserve the ACA, the private healthcare or private health insurance system, because that's working great for us, and it's also working great for our donors. And I'm going to get to that part. Now, GQR listed numerous likely Republican lines of attack against Democratic House candidates over Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill. Now, of course, that bill has about 15 Democratic co-sponsors, and so basically they're afraid that Republicans are going to attack on Bernie's bill. Now, are they going to defend Bernie's bill? Is that what they're suggesting? No, absolutely not. In fact, they're wholeheartedly against Medicare for all. Now, the memo offered no suggestions on how to counter Republican criticisms of Medicare for all, saying, oh, yeah, you're right, it is a socialist takeover. I mean, that's what Dianne Feinstein said. Oh, that's a complete government takeover of healthcare. I'm not quite there yet. Well, when are you going to be there, Dianne Feinstein? Well, the answer to that is never. She's a dinosaur. She's like in her 80s. She's never going to be there on Medicare for all. And look, most of the Democratic Party, unfortunately, is also never going to be there on Medicare for all. They're just not. And there is a reason for that. And I'm going to tell you that reason in a bit. Now, first, the memo reads, quote, the American people overwhelmingly want Congress to approve the Affordable Care Act, not repeal it or replace it with something radically different. We need to offer reasonable solutions to improve the law instead of a massive overhaul. Now, if that sounds like health insurance company talking points, then you would be 100% correct. Because guess who the DCCC works for? The health insurance companies. Okay. Now, first, before I get into that, let me give you some polling on the issue. Now, look, this internal polling firm, said that they found the American people do not want radical change in healthcare. No, they just want to improve the ACA. Well, let me give you some polling results that counteract that. One poll from September found that 52% of Americans favor single-payer healthcare, and 69% of Democrats support that position. Now, recently, there was another poll, Kaiser Health a Kaiser Family Foundation poll. They found that 59% of Americans support a national Medicare for all plan. That includes 75% of Democrats and 58% of independents. Now, that poll also found that 75% of Americans would favor a program that would provide a public option. Now, that poll also mentioned that you could potentially swing more people in favor of Medicare for all if you use the right kind of argument. So there's that as well. Now, does Medicare for all sound like a reasonable solution to improve the law and not a massive overhaul? No, that is a massive overhaul. And does that sound like, based on the polling results, that a majority of the American people are not in favor of that? No, it would seem to be the opposite. A majority of Americans are absolutely in favor of overhauling the system to a single-payer Medicare for all healthcare plan. So that internal polling, who are they asking? People in Washington? Are they asking fellow health insurance lobbyists? Are they asking the centrists on Twitter? On Donut Twitter? I mean, who are they asking? Because they're not asking the American people. They're not asking the majority of Democrats. 3/4 of them support a Medicare for all system. Now, here's a real reason, right? The DCCC is not pushing for something that 75% of Democrats want. According to Alex Koch, campaign finance disclosures show that one of the DCCC's biggest fundraisers is a lobbyist whose firm, Subject Matter, has been working for United Health Group, a health insurance giant that supports further privatizing Medicare. Subject Matter's founder and top lobbyist, veteran Democratic staffer turned lobbyist Steve Elmendorf, has been bundling contributions for the DCCC, and in the current election cycle has raised at least $164,000 for centrist Democratic candidates. In total, bundlers have brought in a close to $1.6 million to the DCCC in 2017 and 2018, making Elmendorf single-handedly responsible for more than 10% of the DCCC's bundled donations. Now let me give you some more information about Steve Elmendorf. On behalf of the United Health Group, Elmendorf has recently lobbied Congress on a health insurer tax plan that is part of the Affordable Care Act. Earlier lobbying records detail the company's goal to repeal or delay that tax. In January, the tax was delayed 1 year and will not go into effect until 2019. Now, that tax, of course, would harm United Healthcare's bottom line. So, of course, he's like, delay it, delay it, delay it. Why? Because it's a tax on my company. It's a tax on the people that I represent. United Healthcare. We don't want that tax. So, yes, I am going to lobby to delay that tax. Now, Elmendorf also represents kidney healthcare company DaVita, having recently lobbied Congress on, quote, issues related to Medicare payment for end-stage renal disease and Medicare Advantage. Now, Subject Matter's other corporate lobbying clients include Facebook, Ford, Goldman Sachs, and Verizon. Well, that's a lot of companies that are just super, super popular these days, especially Verizon, which was one of the biggest lobbyists against net neutrality. Now, let me show you where this money from Steve Elmendorf is actually going. Personally, Elmendorf has contributed $16,400 to the DCCC since last year, and thousands more to at least a dozen moderate Democratic candidates, none of whom have publicly supported Medicare for all. Among Elmendorf's donations so far in the 2018 election cycle, you have $3,000 to Senator Tim Kaine, who recently said he has, quote, some concerns about Medicare for all. Well, from my guess, he's got about 3,000 concerns. Not only that, but you have $2,000 to Senator Claire McCaskill, who said it would be, quote, irresponsible of us to expand Medicare that is driving the debt the most in a way unsustainable financially for this country. So she has about 2,000 reasons to believe that. What about Joe Kennedy? The great Joe Kennedy from Massachusetts is such a progressive lion. Don't make me laugh. Elmendorf donated $2,000 to Joe Kennedy, who has declined to support the idea. And he's also, of course, against legalizing marijuana as well. Not only that, but you have $1,000 to Representative Scott Peters in California. He's the chair of the New Democrat Coalition PAC, who proposed an Obamacare fix with the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus. Not only that, but Elmendorf also donated $1,500 this cycle to the campaign of Senator Debbie Stabenow. Now, Stabenow has introduced legislation to lower the Medicare eligibility age from 65 to 55, which would be nice. She has not come out in favor of Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill and is very likely not to. Now, disclosure forms also show that many of the Democrats Elmendorf supports are also supported by the political action committees of companies and industries that would be threatened by Medicare for All, including some of Elmendorf's lobbying clients. Now, the example of some of these, of the spending of some of these companies and who they're going to, I'm going to give you that. The United Health Group PAC has donated $4,500 to Kennedy's 2018 campaign, $4,000 to Peters' campaign, and $2,500 each to Tim Kaine and Claire McCaskill's campaigns, according to the Center for Responsive Politics. Now, there's another PAC that's giving as well. The PAC of America's Health Insurance Plans, a health insurance trade organization, also gave Peters' campaign $1,000 last year and donated $5,000 to the New Democrat Coalition PAC and $5,000 to the conservative Democratic Blue Dog PAC. Not only that, but you also have DaVita PAC, that is a frequent campaign donor and has contributed to the campaigns of McCaskill, $5,500, Tim Kaine, $2,000, and other corporate Democrats during this election cycle. As a result, these Democrats, so-called Democrats, will never support single payer because they're paid not to. Again, 75% of Democrats want single payer, support single payer. But these corporate centrist Democrats, they will not support it because they are not paid to support it. They are paid by health insurance lobbyists. And they get that money through the DCCC, which is being run by lobbyists who are not in it to represent Democrats, but to represent the donors. It's stuff like this that makes you really think we've got to get the money out of politics. I mean, that is the number one goal here. We got to get the money out of politics. If you don't, you're going to continue to have these Democrats that are controlled by lobbyists that will lobby against the majority of the American people. And they'll put out bullshit polls saying, oh, no, most Americans actually don't want Medicare for all. They actually want the fixes to the ACA. That's what they want. So ignore all those progressive polls. Ignore Bernie Sanders. Ignore the people that are supporting Medicare for all. Those don't matter at all. They're just a tiny little minority. No, the people that they actually represent, their real constituents, happen to be health insurance lobbyists. And they're the ones that are saying, ooh, no, we're not in favor of Medicare for all. You know why? Because that actually impacts my profits. Not interested in doing that. No, until you get the money out of politics, you're going to continue to have that. And that's not a situation that we need to be in. So that's why we have to get that money out of politics, and also why we need to support real progressive candidates. Because if we don't, we're never going to win on this policy. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about policy. And right now, the American people can no longer afford to wait for real healthcare solutions. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.